So before anyone even starts arguing in a courtroom, before a single piece of evidence is presented, there's this huge fundamental question that has to be answered. Does this court even have the power to listen? That power has a special name. It's called jurisdiction. And honestly, it's the gatekeeper for our entire legal system. So let's break down what it is and why it matters so much.
Let's just jump right in with a question. Say you have a legal problem with someone. Can you just sue them anywhere you want? Could you pick a court in Hawaii just because you've always wanted to go? Well, as you can probably guess, it's not quite that simple.
The answer is a big, fat no. For a court to hear your case, it needs that special power we just mentioned, jurisdiction. Think of it like this. Jurisdiction is the court's official key to the case. Without that specific key, the court is totally powerless. It can't do a thing.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the court's power over the case itself. Then, we'll dive into its power over the people involved in the lawsuit. After that, we'll figure out how you find the exact right courthouse. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the key rules you've got to remember.
Now, if there's one thing legal experts will tell you over and over again, it's this. You have to keep these concepts separate. They all sound kind of similar, and they get jumbled up all the time. So our big goal today is to unpack them one by one so they're crystal clear.
All right, let's get into our first major hurdle. It's called subject matter jurisdiction. And right away, the key thing to know is that this has nothing to do with the people in the lawsuit. It's all about the lawsuit itself.
Subject matter jurisdiction, or SMJ for short, asks one really basic question. Is this even the kind of case that a federal court is allowed to hear? You see, federal courts have limited power. They can't just take on any case that comes their way. A lawsuit has to fit through one of just a few specific gateways to get in. And there are two main gateways in the federal court, just two. And here's the good news, your case only needs to get through one of them. On one side, you've got diversity of citizenship, which is for lawsuits between people from different states. And on the other, you've got federal question, for cases that are all about a federal law. So, to get through that first gateway, diversity, you have to meet two conditions. First, what's called the amount in controversy. Basically, what the lawsuit is worth has to be more than $75,000. Second, you need complete diversity, and this rule is super strict. It means not a single person on the plaintiff's side can be from the same state as anyone on the defendant's side. And they are really particular about that dollar amount. The claim has to be more than $75,000. So if you sue for exactly $75,000, nope, you're out. You need at least $75,000 and 1 cent. Okay, you might be wondering, what about a corporation? Where are they a citizen? Well, for these purposes, a company is considered a citizen of both the state where it's incorporated and the state where it has its main hub of operations, its principal place of business. So yeah, a corporation can be a citizen of two different states at once, which can definitely make things more complicated.
Now, if that diversity gateway is locked for you, there's always the other path, federal question. And this one's a lot more straightforward. Your lawsuit has to be based on a federal law, like a case about copyright or a violation of constitutional rights. And that federal issue has to be clear right from the get-go, in the very first document the plaintiff files. Okay, so let's say your case has cleared that first hurdle. The federal court has power over the subject. But hold on, you're not done yet. Now we have to think about the court's power over the people involved. And this is a whole new concept called personal jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction, or PJ, is all about one thing: fairness to the defendant. It asks a simple question: is it fair to haul this specific person or this specific company into a courtroom in this particular state? It's a protection, really. It stops people from being forced to defend themselves in some far-off place where they have absolutely no connection.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? This is the core problem. What happens when the person you need to sue lives in a different state? How can a court in, say, California possibly have the power to force someone from Maine to show up and defend themselves? Well, the answer is this really famous legal idea called minimum contacts. For a court to have power over somebody from out of state, that person has to have enough connections or contacts with that state. It's all about making sure that suing them there is fundamentally fair and doesn't violate their rights. So, what counts as a contact? Well, it could be a whole bunch of things. It could be owning property in the state or traveling there all the time for work. For a company, it could mean selling its products there or running ads that target people in that state. The general idea is if you take advantage of a state's economy and its protections, it's probably fair to expect you to answer for your actions there too.
And this all boils down to a classic, almost poetic phrase from a landmark Supreme Court case. This is the ultimate test. After looking at all the connections, the court asks one final question. Would forcing this person to show up in court here offend traditional notions of fair play and justice? It's basically a gut check for fairness.
When we're talking about corporations, courts use a couple of specific buzzwords. They'll ask, did the company purposely avail itself of the benefits of that state? And are its activities there systematic and continuous? You know, a one-time accidental sale probably isn't enough. But running a regular business operation there, yeah, that's a different story.
All right, we have covered the two biggest hurdles, power over the case and power over the person, but there are a couple of other related ideas that help us zero in on the exact right courthouse for a lawsuit.
Let's quickly touch on two terms that sound a little weird. In rem jurisdiction is when the court has power over a thing, usually property. So a dispute over who owns a piece of land, that happens in the state where the land is. Quasi in rem is different. It's when a court uses a person's property as a hook to get power over them. For example, seizing someone's boat that's docked in the state as a way to cover a debt they owe.
And finally, there's venue. Once you know you're in the right court system and you have power over the defendant, venue's the last step. It's purely a logistical question about the most convenient and appropriate location. It's about finding the specific courthouse, usually based on where the defendant lives or where the incident happened.
Okay, I know that was a lot of ground to cover, so let's do a quick recap to pull all these separate pieces together and make sure the big picture is clear.
So here's a super simple way to keep it all straight. Subject matter jurisdiction is about the case. It asks, what kind of dispute is this? Personal jurisdiction is about the person. It asks, who are we suing, and is it fair to sue them here? And finally, venue is about the place. It asks, okay, which specific building do we go to?
And this brings us right back to that golden rule we started with. The most important thing to remember is this: you can't mush these ideas together. They are separate hurdles, and every single lawsuit has to clear each one. Understanding the difference between power over the case, power over the person, and the proper place, well, that's the key to understanding how our entire court system really works.